Hello friends, fans, and dairy products of all ages. This is Cheese of Ages here, talking about the Kineticist once again because I was asked about the specifics of the build for the Juggernaut Kineticist. Now at some point in the video description I will have a specific build for the Juggernaut Kineticist, but I'm going to wait to iron out a more generalized build. The build that I have right now relies very heavily on the retraining feature and the optional rules being a thing, and also the DM caveat that you can just retrain your shit at any level, like pretty much every other caster can do. It relies kind of heavily on that. It's slowed down, not considerably, but it's slowed down a bit by the ability to not just retrain whatever you want at any point. And you would want to select your feats differently if you can't just swap one of them per level, as the retraining thing works, at least to my knowledge. But yeah, anyway. Also, my specific personal build relies on a race with natural attacks, and then like having Kinetic Fist at first, but then at like 7th or 8th level switching over to Kinetic Blade when the Kinetic Blade starts being better. But yeah, anyway, we're going to talk about some more generalized things for the Kineticist and some key points of the Juggernaut Kineticist build. This might be a long video, so we'll probably talk about the basics in this video, and if necessary, talk about more specifically Juggernaut Kineticist things in another video. So for now, we're going to talk about some key things about the Kineticist in general, and move on from there. We'll answer also a few inevitable questions that will crop up about the Juggernaut Kineticist and melee Kineticists as a whole, which may take up most of the video because we've got to break down a lot of things. But yeah, anyway, you're a D8 class with Cleric base attack bonus, so you're not going to be like as super accurate, but if you go with an Energy Blast for your Kinetic Blade, you'll do a little bit less damage, but you'll have touch attack melee attacks, so accuracy is not going to be remotely an issue for you. It'll be really freaking fabulous accurate for the Kinetic Blade. For Kinetic Fist, energy doesn't really help you there. But yeah. Being a D8 class, however, hurts you a little bit because burn takes 1 off of your maximum hit points per hit die. So, thankfully you're a Constitution-based class. So, like, you'll have like 10 or 11 hit points early on, and you'll want to like get as much as you can in your Constitution bonus, because like if you have just like a 2 Constitution, you only got 10 HP. So at first level, it's like you take it costs 1/10 of your maximum hit points to do like impressive shit at first. And until like 5th level, where you get the ability to lower the cost of your infusions by 1, you'll not want to like do melee combat too much. Because like every round, just to use your melee attack, there's one reasonably piddly attack in melee, you'll be giving up 1/10 of your hit points. You'll be glass cannon. It makes more sense to just blast from afar and do the exact same damage. Melee is not practical. Kinetic Blade is not practical for the first 4 levels of the game, really, because it costs you something to do relatively equal damage to what you'd already be doing with your ranged blasts. The only advantage it has is attacks of opportunity, is if someone provokes from you, blam. It's not that great, honestly, early on, until you hit that 5th level, so you can do it for free. Kinetic Fist, however, if you are a race that has natural attacks, is actually better than Kinetic Blade until 7th or 8th level, in which at 7th level your Kinetic Blast does 4d6 damage. So you'll be doing about the same damage in 1 attack as the Kinetic Fist dude with 2 natural claw attacks will be doing in 2 attacks. And at 8th level, you'll have 2 attacks that do 4d6 damage. So like my Catfolk Kineticist has that Catfolk Exemplar that makes his claw attacks d6 weapons, so he's like doing 2d6 per claw attack on 2 attacks, 4d6 damage plus his strength modifier twice. And it's reasonably easy to boost this by like spending just like 16,000 credits at like somewhat mid level ish, depending on how magic rewards work in your campaign. Like 16,000, which is about the cost of like a +2 weapon, if I'm remembering correctly, maybe a +3. You can just like slap on a helm of the Mammoth Lord and a ring of Rat Fangs, and unless your DM says nay, I'm gonna ask first. Before you get these items, you can add your for the D4 bite attack, your Kinetic Fist will apply to it, an extra D6. Helm of the Mammoth Lord, your Gore attack, extra D6. Amulet of Mighty Fists, all of your shit gets an extra D6 shocking damage for just the cost of a +1 weapon, because you don't have to get the +1 enchantment on it. You can gouge up Kinetic Fist considerably, but this is, I was rambled about towards specific builds where, like, with enough investment, you can make Kinetic Fist really good. At first, it does eventually still fall off because Kinetic Fist doesn't scale up well. It's just 1d6 extra damage on your natural attacks. It doesn't get its first damage increase, and because of how it scales, it doesn't get its first damage increase until level 11, in which it hits 2d6. With a financial investment, it can scale better than your Kinetic Blade, but it requires financial investment, and some might not be okay with that. And it also relies on you having natural attacks to begin with, on a baseline to build on top of with extra natural attack weapons. I mean, not weapons, but magic items, and have your 2 normal basic natural attacks. So, yeah. As far as the inevitable questions go, archetypes come up, and let's skim over them quickly for a general opinion of them. Blood Kineticist, kind of bad. For what you give up, you don't get enough back. It's not the worst of them, but it's still freaking bad. It's more of a flavor class. Elemental Aesthetic. I'm skipping Elemental Annihilator because I'm going to talk into that in more detail. Elemental Aesthetic is okay, but it's still not really super great for what you give up. It's decent. It makes Kinetic Fist scale better, but overall it's just kind of mediocre. It's kind of really the only Kineticist archetype that might be worth pondering. Kinetic Chirurgeon is basically you give up all of your damage capabilities for healing capabilities, and you'll never be as good a healer as a dedicated healing class. So unless nobody's playing a healer, it's not worth taking at all. And honestly, for what you get, you don't give up quite as much as some of the other archetypes give up for the stuff. It's just, Overwhelming Soul is pretty much complete shit. I'll quickly skim over why it's complete shit. Mind over Matter. Your Overwhelming Soul uses Charisma modifier instead of Constitution modifier to run damage with wild talents. The DCs of Constitution-based wild talents, not the Dex ones. The duration of wild talents with a Constitution-based duration. Her concentration checks for wild talents, and the other Constitution-based effects of all of her wild talents. And you get Bluff and Diplomacy for class abilities. And it doesn't really do anything aside from this. So you're still Dex reliant, and you're still Constitution reliant because you need it for your hit points, and now you're Charisma reliant. And also, that's not a good thing. Bluff and Diplomacy is really nice. Having those is really good. But you're going to be a little bit more ability score reliant. If you have good ability scores and can do this, it's going to be okay. But if you're going to use like natural attacks, it's not an option because you're going to be reliant on strength too for a little bit, which is why natural attacks aren't like super good for the Kineticist builds overall in the long run. But that's a more in-depth discussion. Mental prowess. Basically, you can't use burn mechanics. You can't accept burn by choice. If you take burn by not your choice, it's a more debilitating penalty than it normally is. And you can only use talents that require a burn cost, which is most of them, if you can somehow reduce that cost to 0 points with abilities such as Gather Power or Infusion Specialization, which means a lot of your utility wild talents can never be used for a long time, if at all. So yeah, this only is mitigated by the fact that, oh wait, never mind, at 6th level, once a day and once a day only, you can reduce the total burn cost of any wild talent by 1. So basically, all of your wild talents that cost you something, which is some of the best ones don't, but a lot of them do, you can only use them once a day. And what do you get? Pretty much nothing. This is basically just a straight nerf. It does nothing to benefit you. This mental prowess, it does absolutely nothing to benefit you. Oh, and it also gets rid of your internal buffer. So, you give up internal buffer for a nerf. 3rd level overwhelming power, it basically nerfs your elemental overflow. You get a +1 to attack rolls and damage rolls with your Kinetic Blast, which is less damage you'd be getting from regular overflow. The damage bonus still doesn't apply to any of the things that it doesn't normally apply, and while it increases at a similar rate, and you don't get any of the size attribute bonus increases that elemental overflow normally would get you. So let's just go over this ability. You gain a thing that makes you more charismatic, but makes you require more ability scores, and has really no inherent benefit to it, except for the purposes of multiclassing into or out of Kineticist. So if you wanted to be a Sorcerer Kineticist, go ahead and take this archetype, definitely. It's worth it for Mind Over Matter, so you can have a high Charisma score and benefit from it. Mental Prowess, just plain straight nerf. Overwhelming Power, just plain straight nerf. This is just for multiclassing into charisma-based classes. It's completely fucking useless, and it's just a straight nerf across the board. Now, we're going to talk about, in more detail, the final one that I talked about, and this is actually the one that the pertinent question would be coming up about. Why isn't the Juggernaut Kineticist build using the Elemental Annihilator? It's the one that's focused on using your blast as a melee combat tool. Why aren't you using the melee combat Kineticist archetype? Because it's inferior in every conceivable way to the default Kineticist. For a lot of reasons. Tremendous, countless reasons it's inferior in every way. There is literally no reason to take this ability. Let's go over it. Elemental Annihilator is the archetype that, for some Kineticists, nothing in life compares to sweet destruction and pain. Elemental Annihilators pursue only uses of their powers that harm others. And they pursue these things apparently to the detriment of their ability to do it. Devastating Infusion. At 1st level, the Elemental Annihilator can either shoot your Kinetic Blast at a target within 30 feet, or make a single melee attack as if she were using her Kinetic Blade as an attack action. For this attack, the Elemental Annihilator's base attack bonus from her Kineticist levels is equal to her full Kineticist level. Oh, that seems really nice. With a loose interpretation of this, either shoot your Kinetic Blast at a target within 30 feet, or make a single melee attack as both capabilities, rather than you either have your regular blast or a melee attack that is Devastating Infusion. If this means that Devastating Infusion applies to both the 30-foot shot or the and it applies to both rather than just the melee attacks, it sounds really fucking amazing, because you get your ranged attack blast more accurate and you get your melee blast more accurate. That sounds actually pretty good, because it follows a fighter's BAB on this. That's really nice. You're more accurate. You're like 1 more point more accurate at up to like 4th-ish level, at which point you become like 2 points more accurate. That's actually pretty darn good. not including like the elemental overflow, which both of them get. So what makes this terrible? For this attack, the elemental... wait a second, I backed up. A devastating infusion always deals an amount of damage equal to 1d8 plus the elemental annihilator's constitution modifier. Okay, so basically it's only good until level 3, in which your normal kinetic blade deals 2d6 plus your constitution modifier. Okay, let's continue on. Surely this can't be completely shit. Regardless of the elemental, it states that regardless of the elemental annihilator's class level or use of composite blasts. Wait, so it's 7th level. I don't have a 48 kinetic blade. Then I can spend extra burn to make an 8d8 kinetic blade. Okay. When making a melee attack with devastating infusion, the elemental annihilator doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, and if it uses 2 hands, the attack's damage is... the ability score modifier works as if it were strength with a 2-handed weapon, adding like 1.5. So yeah, it doesn't provoke, just like a regular kinetic blade does, and it gets a little bit of a damage increase based on your constitution if you use it 2-handed. Alright, still looking for something that makes this good. This is this first level 4 infusion that costs 0 points of burn and can be used with any physical blast, but not energy blasts. I was a little optimistic there. I mean, it's free. That means you can actually melee attack before freaking 5th level, even though it does shit damage. But you can't use it with energy blasts, meaning a melee kineticist that chose to use a energy blast is doing a little bit less damage overall per shot, for swing because it doesn't do as much damage as a physical blast, but the energy blast makes a melee attack as a touch attack. So it's actually far, 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 far less accurate than the potential regular melee kineticist could be if they chose a energy weapon. Because, like, okay, you don't have 8 points of AC, person in full blade. Oh, person in leather. You don't have that 1 point of armor. Therefore, I am now just as accurate as the other guy. Oh, person in, like, studded leather with 3 points. I'm 3 points extra accurate because I'm making a touch attack. This is already sucking pretty intensively. I mean, the only benefit here is it's free, and yet Kinetic Blade becomes free at 5th level. Okay, unlike with Kinetic Blade, the Elemental Annihilator can use Vital Strike with Devastating Infusion. Nobody takes Vital Strike. All that does is it means you can move, and then on your one attack that you get after moving more than 5 feet, you get your damage die from your weapon twice. So 2d8 plus your Constitution modifier. Instead of, like, just walking over there and swinging your regular Kinetic Blade, which is doing 2d6, or at 7th level doing 4d6, and with a composite blast doing 8d6. This isn't meaning anything. This isn't giving you any more damage. That's the only thing that makes it even in the ballpark for many levels. That puts it even in the ballpark for comparable damage until like 7th level. Past 3rd. From 3rd to 7th. This is the only thing that gives it comparable damage. Okay. The only thing that this could benefit is if the DM was going to be an asshole and add additional rules that aren't written that requires where combat maneuver feats and power attack and such like that you have to be wielding the weapon, even though the feats don't specify that you have to be wielding the weapon to use them. The only reason you can't use Vital Strike with irregular elemental blades is because you're not counted as wielding the weapon. That restriction is not stated as affecting anything else because pretty much no other feat requires you to be wielding the weapon that you are performing it with. Only Vital Strike specifically, to my knowledge, has that prerequisite. None of the parts of the Juggernaut Kineticist have that requisite in their feats. Power Attack doesn't require it, Cleave doesn't require it, none of the combat maneuver feats state that you have to be wielding the weapon. It's no benefit unless your DM is a dick. And also it states that it doesn't get the elemental overflow bonus, but regular kinetic blade doesn't either. So, what do we give up for this ability that is only useful for 2 levels and then drastically and very quickly falls off at 7th level and is never ever anywhere remotely nearly as good from this information as just what you would default get? Okay, so you replace the 1st level infusion, meaning you're not getting kinetic blade, and you're getting this inferior version. Okay. And the basic utility wild talent normally granted by selecting an element. Okay. Some like wood or like other like things that don't have a super useful utility wild talent. Big deal, but like water and telekinetic and to a lesser extent fire, you're giving up a handful of useful cantrips to have a worse version than something that you could normally do. Let's move on, because clearly something else in this has to make this not complete shit. Dampened versatility. An elemental annihilator can never gain utility wild talents. You mean it can never take ride the blast, enabling it to teleport around the battlefield at will, eventually as a swift action crossing hundreds of feet? As a swift action, eventually? It can never gain the ability to fly, turn invisible. It never has the ability to take telekinetic haul and lift 7,000 pounds above its head. You choose for whatever this is giving to give up the ability to, as a telekinetic at 20th level, lift 20,000 goddamn pounds above your head and throw it at a motherfucker. This will be in another video for like things that make the Kineticist really poorly thought out and poorly written. But this is giving up kinetic haul, an ability that technically enables you to, with mini throw out enough granite to bury 80% of the North American continent in 5 feet of granite. So you basically give up the ability to destroy civilizations for whatever this is granting you. What does this grant you? At 2nd level, an elemental annihilator can select a bonus feat from the following list: Deadly Aim, Double Slice, Point Blank Shot, Power Attack, Precise Shot, Rapid Shot, 2-Weapon Fighting, Weapon Finesse, and Weapon Focus. Rapid Shot and 2-Weapon Fighting can be used with a Kinetic Blast only if the Annihilator also possesses Flurry of Devastation. Okay, so 2 of those feats you can't even use until freaking Flurry of Devastation unlocks. So you gain an additional bonus feat at 9th level, which is where you would take one of those feats that you won't work until next level. 10th, 14th, and 18th levels. At 8th level, you add Improved 2-Weapon Fighting and Weapon Specialization to the list. And at 10th level, you also can put Greater Weapon Focused, Improved Critical, Improved Precise Shot, and 2-Weapon Rend. Okay, so let's just get this straight. You give up the ability to turn forests into catapults. You turn the ability to shape stone at will. You gain the you give up the ability to do that, and you give up the ability to throw 20,000 pounds of whatever matter at people. You lose the ability to like create thousands upon thousands of tons of water at will. You give up the ability to turn invisible, to fly, to teleport around the battlefield at will, to summon tsunamis, to cause earthquakes. At 20th level, you no longer have the ability to do any of that you want at whim, because Omnicide gives you the ability to, like, basically for burn, use any talent. You give up the ability to wield the entire fucking goddamn planet as a weapon against your enemies for fucking two-weapon fighting, improved two-weapon fighting, and all these other combat feats. I mean, power attack is in the Juggernaut Kineticist build, but none of the other things that build from power attack are on the list. And let me just like point this out that something you wouldn't know, like the Juggernaut Kineticist runs out of things to do with feats in the last feat slot. So, while this will speed it up a little bit, I mean, it gives you one feat that you actually need for the Juggernaut Kineticist. You don't need feats. So you're giving up the reality is my plaything. I can just pop you like a grape. I can bury continents under freaking miles of water and stone at freaking my whim. I can throw a civilization at you, motherfucker, with my telekinetic powers. I can go invisible for fucking two-weapon fighting, essentially, for things you don't even fucking need or use. Congratulations. You continue to suck. Increased range. This doesn't really take anything from you, thankfully, because if you're going to take basically at 3rd level, you have to take extended range infusion, which, okay, you're not going to be taking it in your 1st level slot because you are melee focused. Extended range infusion, which even if devastating infusion can be used on a ranged attack, you can't use it with the extended range infusion because devastating infusion is a form infusion, just like extended range. So, hey, you have to take a freaking form infusion that doesn't synergize with any of your other abilities. Congratulations. At 9th level, you have to take extreme range, which is an improved version of the other thing that doesn't work with the rest of your freaking archetype. Congratulations. You have to not use the primary function of your archetype in order to do this, to benefit from this. Congratulations. I mean, it's a good thing. Having like 480-foot ranged attack that does more damage than your melee attacks that you're built around is freaking respectable. Alright, ever-present threat. At 4th level, you gain an ability that you already have if you're a natural attacking race, or have a magic item that gives you a natural attack, or you spent a handful of gold to get a spiked gauntlet because you threaten squares with your spiked gauntlet, but you don't have to make the attacks of opportunity with it. This thing, at 4th level, you give up your 4th level utility wild talent for the ability to not have to spend 10 gold. Congratulations. You threaten all foes within your natural reach. If anyone provokes an attack of opportunity from you, you can form your melee devastating infusion and make the attack, after which the weapon disappears. So congratulations, you can do what you could have done if you had just spent 10 gold and not taken this. Or completely for free if you're a race with a natural attack. Huzzah! Blast training. At 5th level, an elemental Annihilator gains a +1 bonus on attack and damage rolls with your devastating infusion. This increases by 1 at 9th level and every 4th level, every 4 levels thereafter. So congratulations, you're a little bit more accurate, but still less accurate than an energy blade wielder. Okay, and you have a little bit more damage. Okay. Flurry of Devastation. At 6th level, The Elemental Annihilator can make a full attack of devastating infusions against targets within 120 feet as a full attack action. Each individual attack deals damage as a devastating infusion. This is the only way to get the devastating infusion on an attack that goes further than 30 feet. And it can't go any further than 120 feet. It's a level 3 form infusion that costs 1 point of burn and can be used with the same blast types as devastating infusion. Abilities such as rapid shot and haste that grant additional attacks apply normally to this full attack. If she makes only melee attacks, you can use 2-weapon fighting. You cannot, however, mix in ranged attacks and use 2-weapon fighting. Unless apparently you also possess rapid shot, I guess. It doesn't specifically state it there. And your offhand 2-weapon fighting attacks had half your constitution modifier, unless you have double slice. So apparently you can dual wield them now. Okay, this is seemingly really nice. I mean, you can full attack with your elemental devastation and dual wield them. It's seemingly really freaking nice. Okay, so let's see here. There's a little something from the designer of the class, I should point out. A question here from a people on the board. Could you explain the infusion text that implies you can use it at once as a part of a full attack to make your attacks? I mean, the text of the infusion is vague enough as is without adding interpretations which are not supported by text. After all, what does this mean? You can use this form infusion once as an attack action, a charge action, or a full attack action in order to make melee attacks with your kinetic blade. Bold as mine. Okay. It says, the reply, from the creator of the class, you can use it once and it forms a blade, so it forms one blade. You can 2-weapon fight with a kinetic blade like a normal weapon though. You totally do get iteratives and haste attacks and even AoEs with the whip. Now, this could be interpreted as the kinetic whip only gets the iterative attacks, but it seemingly means that you can get iterative attacks with the kinetic blade, because he seems to be explaining it as the using it once applies to the forming of the blade, so you can only form a blade one time. That seems to be what he's saying. This is coming from the creator of the class. The designer of the class is stating that you can, at minimum, make iterative attacks and benefit from haste with the whip. Even if it is only the whip, this still means the Elemental Annihilator's Flurry of Devastation sucks, because you can't use Kinetic Whip with it. Kinetic Whip is a reach weapon that also threatens squares that are adjacent. And lasts longer. It stays out past the end of your turn, unlike the devastating infusion does. And you can't use the Kinetic Whip with this. So, alright, I can use Kinetic Whip to make iterative attacks with a far more damaging weapon and have reach. But this Flurry of Devastation only gives me 120 feet attacks as ranged attacks. It doesn't give me extra range on melee attacks, so if I am next to things, I can't attack at any further than adjacent without provoking attacks of opportunity, unless that also applies. The no attacks of opportunity isn't just the conjuring the blade thing, and I'm doing far less damage, and if Kinetic Blade can use iterative attacks, this is still bad, because apparently, according to the creator of the class, you can 2-weapon fight normally with the Kinetic Blade anyway. So by the creator of the class's own admission, this Flurry of Devastation does absolutely fuck all. Except, maybe save you on a ranged increased thing, but no, that doesn't do it either. Basically, only benefit it is that you can mix and ranged attacks with your melee attacks at no cost, because at this point your infusions cost 1 point less. This does absolutely nothing for you. Oh, and there's something nice to point out here. You can never use Metakinesis or Substance infusions with Flurry of Devastation, which you can with Kinetic Blade and Kinetic Whip. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Even with just the Substance infusion, that sucks. Because Bowling infusion, or any of the other combat maneuver things, you can normally have the ability to make a full attack action with something that automatically gives you a combat maneuver with a higher than normal attribute score, and if you build to that, can give you more attacks. So it's 6th level, you get 2 attacks. 3 if you're 2-weapon fighting. If you build to tripping instead, you could get 2 attacks both at your full attack bonus, rather than an iterative attack bonus, which could be touch attacks, as long as you succeed at the trip attempt and have a greater trip at 9th level, 3 levels later. So yeah, okay, two attacks at 6th level and doing less damage than the single attack of the regular Kineticist, so fuck all. Also less accurate if it's a touch attack. And at 9th level, I don't have the ability to, like, sling out multiple attacks with tripping infusions, giving me the trip bonus attack. And also, if they stand up, I don't have the ability to just hit them with a tripping infusion again on an attack of opportunity with a much more damaging weapon, and knock them straight the fuck back down, getting another attack, unless the DM arbitrates that the attack of opportunity happens as they're standing up, and this doesn't trip them again. In which point I'm still hitting them freaking 3 times with a, at this point, 5d6 to 10d6 weapon that can be a touch attack. Why the flying fuck would you care about Flurry of Devastation? Oh, and did I mention that if you wanted to, you could still 2-weapon fight with this freaking 10d6 weapon? Because you can freaking 2-weapon fight with freaking regular Kinetic Blade by the creator of the class's own designation. Flurry of Devastation does absolutely nothing except prevent you from doing things you can normally do. What do you give up for this Flurry of Devastation? 3 utility wild talent slots. One of which is a 12th level, which is where you could get the ability to teleport around the battlefield. And oh, let's just reiterate something mentioned in the previous video: ride the blast on a bow shot as one of your iterative attacks, and then complete your attacks in melee after you've ridden the arrow to its destination. And also 16th level. So you don't have an army behind you. You don't have, like, the ability to be massive in size, because you also gave up the ability to take kinetic form. You're not huge with, like, tremendous reach, because Kinetic Whip, you don't have that either with your Flurry of Devastation. You don't have Kinetic Whip giving you the reach weapon of a huge-sized creature, giving you massive amounts of reach and battlefield control. And you can't use the Flurry of Devastation for the battlefield control of the whip, which is tripping people on attacks of opportunity all across the fucking battlefield. As I stated in that previous video, you're giving up basically all of the capabilities of the Juggernaut Kineticist, all of the things that make a melee Kineticist good, by doing this. But you're not done giving up shit yet. Omnicide. At 20th level, an Elemental Annihilator can unleash Omnicide, a unique physical composite blast. Omnicide deals 10d6 plus 10 points of bludgeoning damage, 10d6 plus 10 points of cold damage, 10d6 plus 10 points of electricity damage, 10d6 plus 10 points of fire damage, and 10d6 plus 10 points of force damage, and counts as a blast of all 5 elements. So, okay. This ability that you cannot use with your Devastating Blast, with your, Flurry of Devastation, you guys, and you still can't use it with your Devastating Infusion, because it does 1d8 damage, and nothing can increase that. So, basically, you can't use this as a melee attack. It does a respectable amount of damage, and it's the only thing that brings you up even kind of remotely competitively to the damage you're giving up to this point, because it's like freaking 50 d6 damage, which you can apply Metakinesis to. And it costs 4 points of burn, which can be reduced by composite specialization as normal. Okay, it's expensive as fuck, but hey, it's an okay ability. It doesn't work with most of the rest of class. This ability replaces Omnikinesis and the 20th level utility wild talent. So you're giving up a utility wild talent slot, which is bad enough already, but you're also giving up the ability. Let's go to Omnikinesis. Let's go. Let's see what you're giving up for this thing that only makes you comparable in damage. It's like, oh, I spend 4 points of burn mitigated by the other stuff, which isn't. I will still take burn regardless, to have comparable damage to what damage I gave up by taking this thing. At 20th level, Omnikinesis grants the regular Kineticist the ability to transcend the distinction between the different elements, and bend all creation to their will. By accepting 1 point of burn in addition to any other burn requirement of the kinetic blast she chooses, she can use any blast wild talent she doesn't know. Theoretically, your blast cost reductions would make this pretty much free, but lower your ability to pin other stuff onto it. By accepting 1 point of burn as a standard action, you can change any of your wild talents into any other wild talent of the same category, such as simple blasts or defense, for 24 hours, ignoring alien elemental requirements or restrictions, but not any other requirements or restrictions. So essentially, for Omnicide, to make yourself capable of dealing comparable damage to a regular Kineticist, and even then still be doing much less damage in a mass battle situation with lots of targets, and having much less battlefield control, you're giving up the ability to, for 1 point of burn, do whatever the fuck you want within the bounds of the class. For 1 point of burn, completely ignore your elemental selections. Because for 1 point of burn, you can use any blast. You don't know. It's like 1 point of blast. Okay, I can use this composite blast for additional burn cost. Oh, I can just, okay, at the start of this day, I want to set up, I want to be able to shape stone at will when I normally can't. Boom. 1 point of burn. Done. You can bend a thing. Okay, I need to go flying off into space, so boom, 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 boom. I can fly to other planets now. You're giving up eternal versatility and usefulness, and the ability to use any type of elemental blast you want, and customize and basically rebuild your class from the ground up for enough burn. Which, mind you, getting yourself at a high level of burn for free for versatility's sake can also bumps up your elemental overflow capabilities, so you can basically preload yourself with massive stat boosts. So this is not just a detriment, this burn, it can be useful. To do comparable upfront damage, but overall somewhat less in certain situations, but okay, comparable damage with far, far, far less battlefield control, and by extension, losing that battlefield control takes away some of your damage. So yeah, the Elemental Annihilator class, which is entirely the archetype specifically dedicated to being the melee combat Kineticist, is so immensely worse than the regular Kineticist. I had to spend half an hour breaking it down just how complete and utter horseshit it actually is. So yeah, thank you for putting up with that and witnessing the hilarity that is the Elemental Annihilator. There's no reason to fucking take it at all. There's pretty much no reason to take any of the archetypes, especially if you're going for a melee Kineticist. You just give up too much. There's no reason. Kineticist is so fucking versatile, there's no reason to give up any of that. For any reason. So anyway, to close out this video, since this is going to be too long to actually talk about the Juggernaut Kineticist in detail, I'll just hit the key points of the things you want to put on it. The Juggernaut Kineticist only works with a concession that spells that do combat maneuvers benefit from combat maneuver feats. If you do not get that benefit from your DM arbitration, you should ignore the combat maneuver feats and just go for like cleave and things. But the things you want to get as soon as possible on the Juggernaut Kineticist with those concessions in place is greater trip and combat expertise. Beeline for combat expertise and greater trip. This will take until 9th level to get all of that. At which point you can Kinetic Blade with Bowling Infusion. You'll probably need to spend another feat slot to get an extra wild talent to get Bowling Infusion, but at some point switch that out into one of your regular infusions once you qualify for taking it normally in your class. Because extra wild talent lets you take things from your secondary element sooner. It's specifically worded to allow it. So, get Bowling Infusion, get Greater Trip, get Combat Expertise. So immediately, Kinetic Blade with the Bowling Infusion on it. Get Kinetic Whip as well, because it gives reach weapons, and it'll be much better when you get Kinetic Form, and it scales in size. So, Kinetic Whip or Kinetic Blade earlier on. At 9th level, you'll probably only have Kinetic Blade, but soon you'll have Kinetic Whip, and get expanded range. Hit somebody with either a Blast or your Kinetic Blade, and you get a free trip attempt using your Constitution modifier instead of your Strength score for the combat maneuver thing. They fall down. You have greater trip. You're in melee range of them. They provoke from you and all of your allies. Hit them again with your Kinetic Blade because it's still around. They try to stand back up. You're adjacent to them, and you have the thing, either the Spike Gauntlet or the natural attacks to make that square threatened. Hit them with Kinetic Blade again. If you have Kinetic Whip at this point, you don't need to form the blade again, because it's still around and you still threaten, because it's still there. Hit them again. If your DM arbitrates that the free trip attempt from the whip can occur again while he's getting up, then you've knocked them down again, getting another attack of opportunity, and knocking them back down. If not, you still get another attack of opportunity from them standing up. So for just one attack, you gave yourself an extra attack, and every one of your allies extra attacks. This is something the Flurry of Devastation can't do. So your damage output is tremendous. And once you get the reach going, and the combat reflexes going, the Kinetic Whip reach gives you a hell of a lot of battlefield control, because anybody passing through your threatened area, you immediately hit with your Tripping Whip with one attack of opportunity. Them being tripped within your threat range gives you another attack of opportunity. So you immediately hit anybody that tries to enter your threatened area twice, unless they have reached themselves. And anybody next to them will be getting an attack too. If you have a ranged person with the snapshot feats that give ranged attacks of opportunity, this is even more devastating because they don't have to be like threatening the squares by being adjacent. They can just like, oh, I'm 10 feet away, patow, because I have greater snapshot. Fuck you. Haha. Good stuff. Even more consistent if you have a energy weapon with this. You know, your energy blast, but physical blast is fine too, because your accuracy penalties are mitigated by your elemental overflow and this like massive bonuses it gives you. So yeah, it's really good. Ride the blast. Get Kinetic Form as soon as you can get it, which is about 10th level. You'll be large sized, and your Kinetic Whip, when you get it, will be sized to the size you currently count as large. So you'll have even more reach than normal. At like 13ish level, and you get the ability to go up to huge size, you'll get even more reach, which means even more of the battlefield is covered by your freaking greater trip and double whips, and you can't get up without getting whipped. Devastation. At this point, you go into the power attack and cleave feats. You can get power attack and cleave sooner than this if you have space for it. Cleaving gives you the ability to do like, oh, I'm going to go and have a standard action, and if I hit you, I'm going to hit the guy next to you. With Bowling Infusion, that means you get a free trip attempt on both of them if you hit them. Later, when you get Great Cleave, you go and do this. You can just make an attempt at everybody in your threatened reach until you miss, which means free trip attempts on everybody until you miss one. And if those keep going, you get more attacks, which can be more cleave attempts. When you get Great Cleave, this is like stupid ridiculous, because like, oh, I missed that guy, but I tripped that guy before, and so I hit him again, and I cleave again, getting another trip attempt on that guy. I hit him with the attack, so I cleave off of that. I didn't get you the first time, but I got you on the freaking second cleave. So I carry on, my wayward son, just getting endless amounts of cleaving attempts. And then after that point, it's optional, but cleaving finish is also a nice option, because like every time you kill somebody, you get a cleave proc, where you can hit an adjacent guy. And believe me, you're going to be dropping some motherfuckers really quickly with your massive amounts of damage. This will proc a reasonable amount of time. So basically, at maximum rank, when you've got the the end of the chain of cleaving finish, the Great Cleave, you're just going out there with massive reach, hitting everybody on the battlefield until you like miss, and getting trip attempts for extra attacks, and everyone you take down giving you more attacks. Over and over again, you just basically just like go into the battlefield, splay everyone out, theoretically speaking, if you roll well. And these trip attempts are using your con mod instead of your strength, though they're more consistent than they would be normally. So you're just like weaving down. Everyone you knock out, you get more attacks. They stand up, you get more attacks, which could theoretically cleave off of if you like. Off the top of my head, I've forgotten if you can only cleave or cleaving finish on your turn. But this is like super goddamn devastating if you can do that, if you can cleave off turn. Don't quote me on that. If it's just stupid if you can cleave off turn, because like, okay, I've hit you, cleave, I got your friend too. Oh, he's trying to get up on his turn. Boom, I hit him, and then you. And the cleaving finish, oh, I killed you, I'm going to hit your friend again. Oh, I killed him, I'm going to hit that guy over there. It's fucking devastating. It's ludicrous. You can run Dragon Ball Z dive into armies and just destroy them. If you're using the mythic rules, mythic combat reflexes is pretty essential, because it basically removes your it removes the cap on attacks of opportunity. So regardless of how many people are within your reach, you can just keep fucking attacking them, you know. So like, and there's an ability to where you can spend a point of mythic power to have them provoke for every time they move through, rather than like, oh, if they moved through, I only got them once. If they continue trying to move, it's like, okay, I ran in, oh, I was knocked down. Okay, I can spend an action to freaking stand up, and I'll still have half my speed movement as part of the same move action, because that's how that works in Pathfinder. I can get out again. I'll stand up. Okay, the DM's nice in saying that free trip attempt doesn't work on that attack of opportunity. I can get back the fuck out. Oh god, I'm moving, and he hit me again, and I'm tripped again. Ow. It's really silly. And if they charge headlong and you fail to trip them, if they enter your threatened area and you fail to trip them, and they keep moving, they provoke again, and get hit again. And if you still fail to trip them, they keep moving, and you hit them again. You're just going to keep fucking hitting them until you fucking trip them. Or they stop moving and saying, please, no. With that mythic combat expertise. I mean, not combat expertise. Combat reflexes mythic version. It's funny. So yeah, this has been an hour-long video. I apologize for that, but that's the basic overview of the Juggernaut Kineticist. I'll bring out a more detailed build guide, but that's the essentials of what you need to do to build the Juggernaut Kineticist. Not to take Elemental Annihilator, because it's terrible, and, build to Greater Trip and the Cleaving feats. And also make sure you get Ride the Blast. And a bow with Conductive. You'll just be rampaging across the battlefield. All of the times. Super mobility. Once you get the Quicken Blast thing, you can ride that blast in, take a motherfucker out, and if you have a spare attack left over, bow, teleport that way. It's good stuff. Good stuff. So anyway, this will be Cheese of Ages, signing off.